My wife and I had been struggling to connect. Our full-time jobs with opposing shifts meant that we only saw each other briefly in passing each day. The COVID lockdowns had made things even more difficult as many of our friends were stuck at home. We were considered essential workers. I'm an IT professional and my wife works in the medical field, so we were busier than ever. But when the lockdowns lifted, we were determined to make the most of our time together. So when a friend told me about his amazing Airbnb trip in the foothills of North Carolina, I thought it was just what we needed. We both put in for a vacation time and were super excited when our requests were approved. We spent weeks searching for the perfect getaway, looking over listings and reviews. Finally, we found the perfect cabin, secluded and surrounded by beautiful trees with a cozy fireplace and a hot tub. It seemed like the perfect way to reconnect with each other. As we left the city behind and entered the peaceful wilderness, I felt my worries melting away. My wife was beaming with excitement as we drove up the winding road to the cabin. It was a relief to know that, despite the challenges of the past couple of years, we could still escape and enjoy each other's company. As we approached the cabin, I couldn't help but notice another home further up the driveway. It seemed odd, but I shrugged it off and focused on getting into the rental. We stepped out of the car, grabbed our bags, and approached the front door. I entered the code I had printed out that the host had sent me in the app as a part of her intro message, but the keys blinked red. I tried again, and it did the same. So I tried to send a message within the app that the door code wasn't working, but cell phone coverage was nearly non-existent. Luckily, the intro message must have been downloaded and stored in the phone because it still showed. Included in the message they had a phone number, but to call it, I would have to find a signal. I looked up and saw a man approaching from the other home. As the man approached, my wife pulled in close to me, her smile fading as he drew nearer. He appeared to be in his mid-30s, tall, tanned, and well-built, but something about the overly whitened smile and the look in his eyes made me uneasy. My wife's grip on my arm tightened as he introduced himself as Henry and extended his hand. I shook it, but his grip was rough and calloused, and he held on a little bit too long, looking me straight in the eyes. Henry apologized for the door code not working and handed me a key, showing us how to flip up the keypad to reveal the keyhole. Then, as he turned to leave, he assured us he would be nearby if we needed anything else. My wife remained attached to my arm, her smile now forced and tense, until we closed the door behind us and she released me with a sigh of relief. We connected our cell phones to the home's Wi-Fi as soon as we were inside, thanks to a printed place card showing the Wi-Fi name and password. It was pretty slow internet, but would work to connect in a pinch or in case we needed to call anyone via Wi-Fi. As she swiped through her phone, my wife showed me a picture of the host, Janet, and pointed out that Henry was not in any photos with her on her profile. I suggested he might be Janet's husband, but she pointed out his lack of wedding band. She continued to scroll through her phone, her hands moving restlessly. Though I agreed that Henry was odd, I didn't want to dwell on it and spoil our trip. We spent the day relaxing inside, turning off our phones to unplug from our everyday digital lives and immerse ourselves in the relaxing environment. Surrounded by trees that nearly engulfed the little cabin from all angles, we sunk into the much-needed rest. Then, as the sun began to set, we decided to take a dip in the hot tub on the back deck, which had an awesome panoramic view of the trees and valleys below. Although I occasionally glanced up at the other house, everything seemed normal. We had nearly forgotten about the day's earlier strangeness. We talked about our work and future plans, letting the tension and stress of our busy lives slip away as we soaked in the hot tub. As the sun disappeared below the horizon, we held each other close, enjoying the warmth of the water and the peace of the secluded cabin. It was a much-needed break from our all-too-digital lives, and I savored the feeling of closeness with my wife that I had missed for so long. As we talked and enjoyed the water, I couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. My gaze wandered to the other house, where I saw a dark figure silhouetted against an orange-lit window. I strained to see if it was the same man from earlier, but couldn't be sure. It gave me an uneasy feeling. Trying to shake it off, I turned my attention back to my wife, but she stopped mid-sentence as she followed my gaze and saw the figure in the window also. She asked me if the person standing in the window was the same man we met earlier. Though I hesitated to accuse anyone, I felt like he was watching us, and I admitted it to her. We quickly got out of the hot tub and into the cabin, away from prying eyes. I could feel my wife's uneasiness. I thought the guy was strange, but I thought she was overly sensitive. But then we heard a loud popping sound that echoed through the cabin like a gunshot. My heart raced as my mind raced through all the possibilities of what could have caused such a noise in the middle of nowhere. My wife was freaking out as she grabbed her phone and started powering it on, telling me that something wasn't right about that guy and that something was wrong. I agreed with her and powered on my phone just as quickly. It felt like forever waiting for the phones to turn on and then connect to the Wi-Fi. But once they did, my wife looked at me with wide eyes, asking if we should call the police. I was scrolling through the Airbnb app, checking the notifications to see if there was a message from the owner about the noise we heard when I stumbled upon a chilling message. It read, "Help, he's in my house." It was sent less than 30 minutes ago. Reading those words sent shivers down my spine, and I immediately showed the message to my wife, who called 911. She provided the address and explained the situation to the operator, but just as she was talking, all the lights in the cabin went out and the Wi-Fi connection with it, cutting off her call. I quickly ran around the cabin, checking that all the window shades were closed and doors were locked. My wife and I huddled in the living room, each clutching a kitchen knife, in every moment stretching into eternity as we waited for the police to arrive. Then finally we could see the flashing blue lights of the police sirens shining through the drapes, and we breathed a sigh of relief. We shared our experience with the officers, recounting the man, the gunshot, and the disturbing message. They swiftly searched the house but found no trace of the man. However, they made a shocking discovery. The woman who owned the cabin, the woman who we had seen in the photo, was found dead from a gunshot wound. We were horrified by the news and cooperated with the police in any way we could. We checked in on the case over the years, but it remains unsolved to this day.